At exactly 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up without a sound. No vibration, no ringtone, just the screen turning on by itself, bright enough to reflect my own face, and something standing behind me. I didn't turn around. I already knew if I did, I wouldn't survive the night. That moment is why I'm writing this now, 2 years later, after doctors, police officers, and a housing authority all told me the same thing in different words. What you experienced shouldn't be possible. But it happened, and the house is still there.
Quiet town, close enough to the city. On paper, it was perfect. The locals joke about ghosts for tourists.
Heard about the ghosts here? Great for tourists.
Ghosts, really? Yeah, locals love the stories.
But real life there is dull, almost aggressively normal. That's why the house didn't stand out at first. It was on Old Albany Post Road, not far from the cemetery, but not close enough to be part of the attraction. 3 stories, white exterior, no visible damage, no warning signs. The rent was suspiciously low, but I didn't question it because I needed a place fast. The realtor avoided eye contact when handing me the keys. I remember that clearly. She said the owner preferred privacy and that I'd have the place to myself. When I asked about the previous tenant, she said he left suddenly. I thought that meant unpaid rent. I was wrong.
Creak the way old buildings do. No settling noises, no pipes, just silence so complete it made my ears ring. I slept badly, but blamed the new environment. The second night, I noticed something small that still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. Warm air was rising from beneath the floor. There was no vent in my room. I checked. The walls were solid, yet the heat was unmistakable, localized, like something breathing below me. That's when I became aware of the basement. The listing hadn't mentioned one. The realtor hadn't either. But once the idea entered my head, I couldn't ignore it. Old houses almost always have basements. I assumed I'd missed the door. I found it in the hallway the next morning, painted over so many times it blended into the wall. No knob, just a recessed handle, cold to the touch. When I opened it, the smell hit me first. Not rot, not mold. Metallic, wet, like iron soaked in rainwater. Cold air rolled up the stairs, thick enough to fog my vision. The staircase descended farther than it should have. I counted the steps as I went down. 28. The house wasn't tall enough for that. At the bottom was a concrete room with bare walls and a single light bulb hanging from a wire. The floor was dry, too dry. No dust, no footprints, as if the air itself had been scrubbed clean. Then I saw the marks on the wall. Scratches, deep and uneven, at different heights. Some where an adult's hands would reach, others much lower. I went back upstairs and told myself I was overreacting. That lie lasted until the footsteps started. It happened that evening while I was in the kitchen. I took 3 steps toward the living room and heard 3 steps beneath me. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I stopped. So did the sound. I took another step. Another step answered from below. The timing was perfect. Not an echo, not random noise. It was following me.
I stood there for a full minute, heart pounding, waiting for the sound to resume on its own. It didn't. That was worse. From that night on, the house was never empty again. The footsteps became routine, always beneath me, always just out of sync enough to feel intentional. If I paced, they paced. If I sat, they stopped. I started sleeping on the couch, then stopped sleeping altogether. I tried to rationalize it. Old plumbing, thermal expansion, anything but the truth pressing against the edges of my thoughts. Things escalated on the 5th night. I woke up to knocking. Not banging, not scratching. Knocking. 3 measured taps coming from beneath my bed. I didn't scream, I didn't move. I stared at the wall until morning light crept in and convinced me I was still alive. That day, I went to the library. Public records showed nothing unusual about the property. No reported deaths, no crimes, no fires. That absence unsettled me more than any horror headline would have. In a town as old as Sleepy Hollow, something that clean felt artificial. An elderly librarian noticed what I was searching for and silently handed me a thin folder. Inside were handwritten statements, not official reports, dated decades apart. 1954, 1955, 1956. Each one described the same thing: sounds beneath the house, a basement that didn't match the building's dimensions, a sense of being observed from below. Every statement ended with the same sentence: the basement was not on the original plans.
That night, the sounds changed. They no longer waited for me to move. They started on their own. Slow footsteps pacing beneath my bedroom, stopping directly under my head, matching my breathing. When I held my breath, they paused, then resumed, slower, as if savoring the moment. At 2:17 a.m., my phone turned on by itself. The screen lit up my room, and in the reflection, I saw a silhouette standing behind me. I didn't turn around. The next morning, I spoke to my neighbor across the street, a man in his 60s who had lived there his whole life. When I mentioned the basement, his face drained of color. "Did it start walking yet?" he asked. When I nodded, he told me to
leave. Not move out. Leave. Immediately. No packing, no returns. Nothing, sir.
That was the night I nailed the basement door shut. 2 heavy planks, long nails. At 3:11 a.m., I awoke to the sound of wood splitting, not breaking, but being forced apart. The hallway stretched impossibly long, the walls bowing outward like the house was breathing. The smell poured through the cracks, wet earth, blood, and something ancient. I went downstairs. I don't know why. Fear does strange things to logic. The basement light was already on. Under it stood something shaped like a person who had learned what humans look like from a distance. Limbs bent wrong, joints where there shouldn't be joints, a face layered like it had tried on several and kept the worst one. When it smiled, I recognized my own teeth. Behind it was a wall I hadn't seen before, carved with names, some crossed out, some not. At the bottom was an empty space, my height, my handwriting. I ran. When I crossed the property line, the house snapped back into shape behind me.
I never went back. 2 years later, the house is still listed for rent. The basement is still not on the plans, and sometimes at 2:17 a.m., my phone still lights up by itself.